Hi, welcome everyone. Hopefully, seeing people come in, that they're connecting. Okay, awesome. So we do have a question in the chat box. If you would like to go ahead and just take a look, see, provide your response. We'd love to see where everyone is from today. So we're just gonna go ahead and give it just maybe a couple more minutes just to make sure that we have everyone successfully connected, and hopefully any other participants coming in can take a moment and get settled in. Nice, CC. That's awesome.
Also, another fun question for everyone. What's a form of self-care that you've been practicing in the last week or so, or maybe you hope to practice maybe today or maybe this upcoming week? Love to hear.
Ooh, cookies. That's a great form of self-care. I went for a walk today, so that was really nice. But I mean, I might make some cookies later. Why not? Wow, we have such a variety. I love it. New York, San Diego, scrapbooking.
Ooh.
That is very nice.
I don't think I've done scrapbooking in a long time. Maybe.
I know.
Maybe I'll join. Maybe I'll join and look through some of my pictures.
Okay. So let's see. A couple more minutes, I think. Right, Denise? We can have, yeah, we have a couple more minutes. But yeah, recently I did actually try to get back into somewhat scrapbooking, but starting off at a minimal level, just putting together picture frames because I want more photos in my home. So that's a small baby step for me.
For those of you just joining in, we had a question just earlier. We're still waiting for other people to join the call, but we're asking where you're coming from, or if you've answered that question, we'd love to hear what's a form of self-practice, that you'd love to do or you have been doing this last week. Love to hear some of those. We had some of our friends say scrapbooking. People are baking cookies. Love it.
Okay. I mean, I think we are nearing the beginning, so hopefully everyone is finding their way in. And then if there are any difficulties, whether it's like technical, feel free to go ahead and just pose the questions in the chat box. Just like as a friendly reminder too, this webinar will be recorded. So any information that we share today, whether it's like the resources, the links, things like that, those will be added in an email afterwards. So don't fret if you don't, take down any of the names of the websites or anything that we share, because you will definitely have that soon, probably by tomorrow. So we'll go ahead and make sure to send that out. But yeah, I mean, welcome everyone. I'm very happy to see that we have so many participants in today. Today's really about understanding that conversation between the student and their families and the educators around them about their college plan, to understand your role and how it is that you play into their plan and how it is that you can best support them through this process. So before we begin, I actually wanted to go ahead and just start off with just small quick introductions, just to kind of give you an idea of who our moderators are today. So let me go ahead and get us started. Let me see. There you go. So close. There you go. Okay. So if Denise will go ahead and there you go. Perfect. Thank you. So just to begin, I'm Betsy Pena. I am a program coordinator at the TGR Foundation. And just a little bit about me, I was a first-gen college student myself. I am one of 3 daughters. So you can only imagine how that conversation went about, my college plan and like really understanding what that meant for me and my family. But I'll go ahead and let my colleague introduce herself.
Well, hello everyone. to our students, to our families, to our educator friends that are on this call, we're very excited to have you join us today. Today's really just going to feel hopefully like a conversation, and we do have two very special guests for us later on this call. And we really just wanted to help you guys navigate, what could be a meaningful or perhaps even a difficult conversation around college planning with students. And we hope that, we might be able to facilitate and kickstart some of those ideas, especially with so many of our students spending time with their families during this time. So thank you again. Hopefully we can provide some insight. And I just wanted to give everyone a friendly reminder that this webinar is being recorded. And the recording, along with the slides and any resources that we share, will be shared in a follow-up email. So no need to worry about taking screenshots or anything. We will be sending that info later on. And if at any point, again, if you kind of missed, some of the points that Betsy was mentioning earlier, at any point you have any questions, we really highly encourage you to ask in the chat box, and we'll try to get through those questions towards the very end of the webinar. So we appreciate you, and we appreciate you, being here with us today. So I'll hand it over to Betsy.
Thank you, Denise. So let's go ahead and get on to the next slide. So hopefully technology will be our friend today, is what I'm hoping for. But if not, I know that Denise will be a great co-facilitator with me about this. So it doesn't seem to want to be my friend today. So I think I will definitely be having Denise's assistance today. But let's go ahead and get started with really, I think it comes down to just starting that conversation, having that first moment with them. And at the end of the day, it really comes down to the student taking the lead on, what it means to have that conversation with their family. And ultimately, as we see on this next slide coming up right now, is it really starts with just seeing who it is that really needs to be in that conversation with you. So whether it's, your parents or your grandparents, possibly an aunt or an uncle, every family dynamic can be very different. So you need to identify your decision makers, right? Aside from you. Obviously, you might be like the most important one as the student, really understanding who could really play a part with that. The next part is, and this is where it really relies on them, is doing their research, understanding that when they're approaching their decision makers, that they're coming in with some form of a plan. Maybe it's looking into schools, understanding their college fit, and it's just really this part about taking it step by step and making sure that you're including your family in each step, because then they're really going to understand the fuller meaning of what your college plan is and what that means for you and for them as a whole. We always tell our students that, and their families, that them going to college, it changes everyone's trajectory for the better. So that's really why we go ahead and talk about this as taking just minimal steps together to make sure that you're reaching the same point and staying on the same page. And just with that said, I think too, at the same time, it's also understanding where your family is coming from, where, maybe perhaps their background or their upbringing plays into effect, maybe how you'll approach that conversation as the student, and saying, okay, how can we meet in the middle, have them understand me and my point of view and what I would like out of my college plan, as well as understanding maybe their concerns and their worries when it comes to maybe some decisions you have in mind. So just kind of keeping that in mind as we go forward. So let's go ahead and move on. Okay. So we really would like to see where you're at in this decision process. And perhaps you're not a student as a participant right now, but maybe perhaps thinking about when you were in those shoes and seeing how it was for you. So we do have a question. What step are you on in this process? Meaning, the college process. It could be in terms of you haven't talked or even created a college plan. You haven't shared that with your family just yet. Maybe you've already researched colleges and you haven't shared your choices though with them. The other option is you've researched colleges and you've brought conversation about it with your family. And then the last one is you've started thinking about your college plan, but there's those nerves about even starting the discussion. So we're going to have a poll for our participants. So if you can go ahead and actually, submit your answers and responses, we'll give you guys a little bit of time to see which decision you'll get to, and we'll show kind of the results of it in a bit. So I know I see some inputting in the chat, but I think it should be available on your Zoom screen as a poll taking question.
And if it's not, if for whatever reason it's not showing up, again, technology, we're all navigating through it. We see that a lot of you are probably relating to, you have research colleges and talked about them with my family. And if we have any educators on the call, where do you think most of your students tend to be from these options? There might be option E where it's other, but where do you see most of your students, especially, our juniors and high school seniors in this conversation? I think perhaps if you guys do not see the poll, I might end it because there might be a kink on your end, but you should see it on the bottom of your screen. And if you see the word polls, please click on that, and then it should give you the option to answer the question. And if not, it's totally fine. I could see in the chat box that so many of you are answering C. D, have started thinking about my college plan, but I'm nervous to discuss with my family. I think we typically tend to see that with many of our students, actually. But thank you, everyone. I'm so sorry about the poll. I apologize for that. I'm not too sure what might be occurring, but I appreciate all of the feedback that we're receiving on the chat box.
Yes, so like Denise said, I think it's very much a mixture of it, and I think that brings us to this next part where it's really understanding your role as an educator possibly, and how it is that you can really be facilitating or helping facilitate these questions that students may have about how they're going to bring their ideas to their families. And I know that even just from experience for Denise and I, we've learned that we are a part of this idea of education cheerleaders. Our students really rely on us to help them, guide certain conversations, whether it's, with other educators or possibly with people part of the college application process, but more so with their families. And who are these education cheerleaders, right? It's not just, it could possibly be teachers, but counselors, coaches, it could be older siblings, parents. So students are really, connecting into their organizations that they're a part of, understanding what their community is offering them, and how it is that they can best support them, and understanding that these roles, they play into a larger part of this whole conversation. We, as program, Denise and I, we actually have the ability to connect with parents and facilitating that conversation between our students and their parents, having them understand possibly the opportunities that our students are going to be receiving at certain institutions that they're really considering and they're really passionate about, and explaining that to our families and having them see that this is such a large opportunity for them and how it could be for their growth. And it really helps parents understand that they're not just trying to say, oh, well, my student just wants to move away from me and not be a part of our family anymore. It's them really understanding, like, this opportunity will allow my student, my child, to really mature, to grow, to come into their own and gain a professional life that they've worked so hard for, that career that they're really wanting for their children. So, as we're kind of going through this and understanding all these different roles, we are going to be also understanding the different challenges that certain students may face. It could be as a family, but it could also just be from the student's perspective, right? So, for example, a lot of common concerns that our families and students face is just understanding college readiness. A lot of our students, they tend to feel that they're not academically prepared once they end up, going to a certain institution, or seeing if they're a right fit in terms of the pace that the curriculum is going at. It could even be more critical things like, even before they even enroll, of the financial challenges, the financial hardship that, families are trying to have a conversation around, because for the most part, and being first gen myself, my parents didn't really understand that there were scholarships and that there were grants out there and available for students in all financial circumstances to help cover these costs. So it's also having that conversation of, okay, if my son or daughter wants to go to a school that costs maybe anywhere from 30 to 75,000, I'm just throwing out numbers here, but if they want to go to a school that costs that much, well, we can't afford it, right? So they immediately might not be open to the idea. Another part is is a little bit different for students, because at first they might not realize that homesickness is a real thing for them, or that they'll experience it because, the excitement is there. But that's another common fear that some students may have, thinking, okay, as things get more and more real and the time approaches where they're either applying or they've gotten in, I've been so close with my family, we're a unit. Am I really willing or able or open to the idea of finally like moving away from home to pursue my college education? So these are just certain parts and just big umbrella ideas of what our students face, along with just lack of family support. I know that it was really difficult for my parents to even be open to the idea of me, moving away for college, if that was even a possibility. It depended on how I approached the situation, but bringing about that conversation it's about reinstating your passion for what you want with your family.
And Betsy, can I add to that?
Yeah, of course.
I think, earlier, if you're just joining the call right now, we specifically work with all of our college access programs, and we work with a lot of first generation students of color from under-resourced communities. And I know particularly for me, moving away was a huge issue for my family. My sister, my oldest sister, was actually the first to go off to college, but her journey was very different than mine. And I know that when I got into just 3 schools, because those were the only schools that I applied to, I really wanted to go to San Francisco State University. And unfortunately, I did not have the support from my family, and they were very adamant about it. And reflecting now, I wouldn't take anything away from the experience that I had, but I think reflecting and also doing this work myself and mentoring students, I think it would have been very key to surround myself with mentors. And I think I indirectly had those mentors, but I just didn't know what questions to ask. And I think as educators, especially for those educator friends that we have on this call, is like, how can we help our students ask those important questions so they can then feel comfortable to have these type of conversations with their families?
Yeah, exactly. And I think a big part of it is making sure that your parent is understanding your perspective. And I think that's the hardest stage to get to. But once you reach that, I feel that parents are, they always want to be on their student side, and they do want the best for their child. It's, again, though, coming back to maybe some cultural norms that it's a little bit tougher to discuss and to come to agreement with. And that kind of meaning is the idea of the role model. At least this is something that was heavily viewed in my situation as well, where, for example, like my parents, they were like, you have a younger sibling. How would you be there to support, or to be that role model, or to be that figure that she can rely on if you're not here, right? If you're not at home, or if you're not present within the family. But what they don't know is that, or what they might not see at that moment, is that by you doing that, your younger sibling, or whoever it is that's around you that sees you as that role model, they will view you as somebody who is willing to go for their goals, for their dreams, and making sure that you're doing what you can to make that happen. And and that last point, it's aligning your academic readiness with your college list. And I think that's something that at times our parents have conversations with, family friends, with other family members about what their students are doing or what their students are pursuing. And at the end of the day, I think it's very important for students to really make it known that this process is all of your own. You are very unique. You have different goals, a different mindset, maybe a different preference in schools. So if you would like to go to a specific school that maybe other family members or other family friends may not think is the best idea, it's really about forming your own college plan and bringing that to your family, and to making sure that they can understand that part. Because, like I said, a lot of our parents, it's all a large conversation to have. So just kind of making sure that we keep these challenges in mind as we, continue to work with our group of students, depending on where they're at, and trying to see how it is that maybe you can facilitate a specific topic like this between them and their parent, or just like a bigger conversation as a whole. And so that kind of leads us to talking about that college plan, right? About where it is that the student is with that, if they've created one, if they've even thought about it. And something that Denise and I really talk to our students about every single year when we're working with our seniors is college fit. I know that for a lot of students, they just hear certain colleges all the time and they're like, oh, that's automatically on my list. But we always ask, why? Why is that on your list, And why is it important to share these ideas with your family? So we always really emphasize college fit, and that can mean a wider range of things. Just some examples, it's, the location of it. Is it a good fit for you to be in the city versus rural? Or, what resources does this specific campus or university offer you as a student? Do they offer like free tutoring? Do they offer a first gen center, a student support services center? It could also be that their curriculum, the way that it's shared, is a better fit. Maybe it's maybe you desire a lot more structure where you know which classes you're taking every semester. Or it could be that maybe the pace of it, you prefer a quarter system versus a semester system. But something that many students might not think about immediately is the financial fit. I know that maybe our families and our parents are always keeping that in the back of the minds, because that's something that's very prominent, right? Understanding what's the financial commitment that I'll be making along with my student by having them pursue this school or this university or college. So something for you and your students to really discuss, whether it's between educators with their students, or parents with their students, or even as a whole, if you hold meetings like that, is having everyone understand specific parts of the financial aid process, and different parts about financial aid packages that students will ultimately be receiving, but just kind of some activities or some resources to really help families understand that with their students. We actually would like to share something that's, we're two different resources for right now. One of them is from our TGR EDU Explore website, and we'll actually go ahead and go into our next College Greenlight resource after. So this is kind of what the website looks like. This is actually the families page, and this is where our discussion starters are located. But I did want to highlight, finding the right college fit. It's really about asking yourself all these questions as a student, and seeing maybe things that you might have not even thought about before. You're just like, I'm just focused on maybe what it looks like and if it has my major, and college fit is so much more than just those two questions. So if we actually go ahead and go to the next, we'll actually see a little bit of what these questions might look like. And this is actually from College Greenlight. So the College Greenlight PDF, and again, this will also be sent along with the other links that we have available for everyone. But just something to consider is something that I actually really like is the outcomes section. For example, like asking retention rate, what is it? Is that statistic a good reflection of the institution, right? So what is your school's freshman retention rate percent of freshmen who return for their second year? So that's essentially asking, are freshmen or first years feeling supported? Are they feeling happy on their campus? Are they feeling that they are accomplishing what they would like to accomplish? So just different questions for you to really think about as a student, or maybe for families to pose to their students if they're not thinking about necessarily these different parts of their college fit. Okay. And so this is actually a part of our TGR EDU Explore family discussion starter for our navigating financial aid, which is actually located right below our college fit. So this is actually just a very quick preview of one of the activities that we have in there for families. And this is something that we actually do with our students as well, is we go ahead and we meet with our families and really discuss what your financial aid packages are looking like and what all the numbers really mean, and ultimately what amount will be your responsibility, right? Whether it's as a student, as a parent. So this is something to do with your student to get on the same page about, okay, how much loans are being offered or how much money in grants or scholarships. And this also gives that little nudge to our students to really think, oh, it's never too late to apply for scholarships, right? So this could also be a very good evaluation for a student to think about, okay, I need to jump on the scholarship train. I need to go ahead and make sure that I'm getting my applications in because I want to make this school a financial reality for myself and for my family. So this is just kind of a preview of what that would look like. And I do want to say that apart from these previews that we give, there's so many more resources that you'll be able to find on that site. And we'll kind of share a couple more throughout the webinar, but just kind of keeping that in mind.
So I'll actually talk a little bit more. Thanks, Betsy, for sharing those resources. Here's the thing, especially for our educators on this call, obviously given the circumstances that we're all in, I think that, we have to think differently and creatively on how we can reach our families, particularly, families that might not necessarily have available resources. I'm very passionate because, again, not just myself, but also Betsy herself can really identify to these type of circumstances, and really seeking other family members who have pursued a college degree is very important to engage in the conversation. I know it can make it just a tad bit easier. I know for myself, my sister's journey was very different than mine because, at that time she was undocumented, so her college journey was very different than my journey. And I know the conversation with my parents was just very difficult, just because they didn't understand why I actually wanted to leave home, especially being a Latina woman. I think our cultural norms for the most part is like, okay, well, you should try to get married and and seek those type of goals, and education wasn't the primary goal for them at that time. Of course, reflecting in that, it's a little different, but I think my sister, in some way, shape, or form, at least kind of spearheaded that path, that she did go off to college to make that difference for myself. I think some tips and strategies for some of our educators. I know that when it comes to our programming, one of the key things that really helps us, aside from just having staff, I think it's very crucial and it's very important to actually have other parents, especially parents of like first generation students that have gone off, to their respective campuses and have left home and have left the nest. Because when they hear these stories from other parents, a lot of the times they start reflecting. And here's the thing, it's not just going to happen overnight. It's not a one-time thing. I know when we start working with our students in their junior year of high school through our Orwood Scholar Program in particular, we really intertwined different meetings and panels with other parents that have had these experiences to share what their thoughts and their reflections are. Sometimes even in these meetings, we have parents, cry like, oh my God, like I really don't want my daughter to leave, or my son, like I just can't even imagine. Or, the reality is that we have a lot of parents that are working multiple jobs and cannot attend these meetings. I mean, let's be real, right? And a lot of times we encourage our students, like, is there an older sibling? Is there an aunt or an uncle? Or is there a mentor of yours that can possibly come to these meetings? Because just having one person there to support them will then, kind of become a ripple effect for more support. Another thing that we also do is we have community and home visits. So I'll explain that really quickly. So we, we have really the honor to do home visits with our students if their families feel comfortable. And at the comfort of their homes, we actually have very private conversations, whether it's with grandma or grandpa, or maybe it's a single parent household with mom, or whatever the case might be. We really try to give them a scope of what the college process looks like, because many times they've never gone through the college process before. So they have very, very great questions for us. And at that point, we really allocate, if anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour of our time to really answer any private questions that they have. And I can honestly say that the number one thing is always money. It's always financial circumstances is always a concern. I also say community visits because, again, not all of our families feel comfortable, and we completely understand, depending on what their circumstances are. Sometimes, we'll keep it very light and fun. I know right now with, COVID-19 happening, this is not necessarily our reality right now, but we typically would go to, like a local coffee shop, or, maybe a small mom and pop restaurant, just to kind of have some coffee or tea, whatever the case might be, just to have that conversation. We've even done boba with our students, whatever, their families feel most comfortable with. And then the other thing that we do is also we do family workshops. So typically this would have been the time of the year where we would have had our financial aid workshop, where they actually get to compare financial aid packages with their significant others or with their families. And it's very, very empowering, because at that point they really understand that, okay, like, let me not stress out so much, because throughout the year we've been helping them with like scholarship workshops, scholarship meetings, and we embed their families throughout these conversations. So it's very important to start early on versus waiting towards the tail end when students are trying to make their decisions. I would also say that another way that we like to connect parents is, say they cannot physically meet with them because it's too much of a financial hardship to really ask for the time at work, and we're very understanding of that. We actually reach out to some of our former parents, and we then ask, like, would it be okay with you if we shared your phone number so they can connect with you all? And then at that point, you guys can discuss, your experiences and some of your questions as a parent that you may have. And then this is actually one of my favorites. We'll see what this looks like this upcoming year, but we're really planning on a lot of virtual meetups. We do a lot of family networking events. So networking does not just happen with students or educators. It should also be happening with families. So we typically, over the summer, we have a what we call a summer barbecue, and it's almost like a potluck style. Typically we have over like 200 people show up, former alumni, current students, and just students that have just joined our program, and it's just a really good way for families to really mingle with each other and again ask each other questions, but in a more lighthearted event versus more serious, like, okay, let's talk about financial aid. We also have celebrations for students, and we have them invite their families so we can celebrate their milestones as well. So these are just a few ideas. And again, going back to Betsy's point, we do have curriculum on our TGR EDU Explore website. So we really encourage you guys to check that out. And another thing too, I think college right now, college planning, especially for the class of 2020, might be a little challenging because so many students might be considering schools that are not local to their area. And we understand the challenges that COVID-19 is pretty much providing for everyone at this point. We really encourage students to consider doing virtual tours, also reaching out to other college access programs or even other extracurricular programs that they're part of to see if they can connect with a current college student that attends the college of interest. Also, following the college-specific social media accounts is very important. They might have a college newsletter, newspaper. I know, colleges are getting very creative right now, and a lot of them are in conversations on how they can support the class of 2020. So if you're a parent on this call, and if you're trying to support your child or your student through this process, these are some tools or some things that they can definitely do. Also, evaluating financial aid packages. Connect with financial aid officers. A lot of financial aid officers will, definitely help you understand what the financial aid package may look like. If translation might be an issue, I know for us, like, I was mentioning family meetings. As of right now, I only know Spanish, so I could only translate in Spanish, but if I knew other languages, we actually, try to find other staff members or maybe other local stakeholders that can maybe help with translation for our families, because that's very, very important. But when it comes to financial aid, please, for our students and families, reach out to those financial aid offices. That's what they're there for. Also, financial hardships. I know that being first gen, a lot of the times we have a hard time maybe asking for help or, asking for, like, well, I don't even know what questions to ask. I would encourage a lot of our students, if financial circumstances are very difficult right now, perhaps, the college could waive your deposit fee. I would definitely call the admissions or the financial aid office to see if they can help you with that. Also, seeing how they can help you with orientation fees as well. And also scholarships. It's never too early to start applying for scholarships. So whatever age your children may be, make sure that you're really, really encouraging them to apply to scholarships. And even if they're currently in college or about to start college, they can still apply to scholarships. So I really, really encourage our students to seek out some of these resources as they, have these continuing conversations with their families. So with that said, we actually really wanted to welcome, and this is just going to be kind of like a flowing conversation. We have Jailene and Jesse, who are going to be joining us today. Hopefully you all can see them, and Jailene, you can go ahead and unmute yourself, but I'm just going to do some introductions really quick. So Jailene is a Guatemalan American first-gen college student who has actually been part of the TGR Foundation since 5th grade. So we've known her for a very long time. And she was also part of our Irwood Scholar Program. She graduated from Catella High School in Anaheim, California. And she earned her bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of California, Los Angeles. So AKA UCLA, go Bruins, if there's any Bruins in the house. And also Jailene is currently a first-year PhD student in the Department of Human Development and Family Studies at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. So can we all give Jailene kudos? amazing. So proud of her. I'm so blessed to even know her. So very, very proud of her. And then for Jesse, if you guys can't see the resemblance, Jailene and Jesse are actually siblings, and they have two very different perspectives of what their conversations like were with their family. But he's also a Guatemalan American first generation college student, who is also very familiar with our programs at the foundation. And he also attended Catella High School in Anaheim, California, and he's attending his first year at Boston College as a neuroscience and political science double major. Thanks, Jesse, for making us all look amazing with all those double majors. And he's also currently interested in careers in both healthcare and law. So he's definitely aiming to go to medical school, and I know we're all sending positive vibes for that. So Jesse, we definitely wanted Jesse and Jailene, we definitely wanted to get started with some questions. And of course, if any of you might have questions for them after this, we are definitely gonna allocate some time for that. And then Jailene, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you. But we wanted to ask you, your first question. Given that you were the first one in your family to go to college, what was your step in including your family in the conversation?
Yeah, so because I was the first to go, it was very important for me to include my family in every step of the process. And that included, from like figuring out what schools I was potentially interested in, what programs I was looking into, taking into account the program, the fit, the reputation, the location, the financial aid, like all of that I think you've already mentioned and touched upon. Because I wanted to be respectful to them, be open to them, and transparent about, what was going on in my head. And we weighed the pros and cons together. So that's how I was able to include them, like just letting them be a part of it from the beginning. But I just made sure to let them know that at the end of the day, I was going to be the one to make the ultimate choice. I was welcoming their feedback, letting them know what I was thinking, but very adamant about the fact that I wanted to be the one to ultimately decide in the end where I wanted to go.
So, was there any point, obviously between high school and undergrad, because I'm sure your conversation was a little different once you accepted for your PhD program, but was there a point where you and your parents actually disagreed, and how did you resolve that?
Yeah, so for me, I was applying. So because I'm from Southern California, a lot of the public schools there tend to focus on the CSUs and the UCs. And that's great because I ended up going to UCLA. So I'm definitely loving it there. But I was also considering out-of-state schools, like private liberal arts colleges at the same time. And that's where my parents were more hesitant about, me applying, because they're like, well, we don't have family there. You don't know anyone there. They just had a lot of different concerns about, why would you want to go far away? And so in those conversations, again, it was very honest because we were always transparent from the beginning about like the reasons why I was applying. So I was like, has a good program, I could get a good job after, things like that. But I honestly ended up just reaching out to other people. So I reached out to you, Denise. I know you helped me a lot in navigating the conversation with my parents about their concerns about potentially going far away. But I also, and other like TGR staff members, I reached out to other scholars, either through TGR, through my own personal connections, through email, video chat, text. I even went on LinkedIn and found random people and just messaged them. And, not everyone got back to me, but it was just really important to kind of hear different perspectives. I reached out to my teachers, my counselors, other mentors, and kind of just talk to them about their opinions. And then once I was able to hear my parents' opinions, the people I trusted's opinions, I also considered my own, because I think your own are the most important, because you know what's best for you, you know what's going to be the best fit for you. So I just took everything into consideration, talked it out, and then again, I just made sure that they knew that I was going to be the one to decide in the end. So whether they, I would hear them out and be like, okay, so why do you not want me to go to this school? And I was like, I'd hear them and I'd be like, okay, well, this is why I want to go to this school, and then go from there.
What would you say, based on what you just mentioned right now, that you really did a lot of like the work on your end, like you were the one reaching out, you're the one asking for help. What would you tell, maybe even whether it's a student or even an educator, how they can help other students, really build up their confidence and self-esteem to ask for help and reach out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because of the school and the area I grew up in, there were a lot of like college access programs that I was very aware of, and I advocated myself to be involved in those programs, and they helped me a lot with finding resources. But I think for students who may not have as much access to those things, I think just even a quick Google search will help just to find programs like the basics, the foundations of, okay, like what should I be thinking about and asking and then like students can start developing questions on their own from these different resources and then take it to, you know, their high school counselor or maybe a mentor teacher or an adult in their life that they really trust and kind of have these conversations. Because even if the other person isn't as informed about the questions you're asking, you can kind of delve into the research together and have those conversations there.
Thank you. And Jesse, I'm going to turn it over to you. So totally get it. You guys are siblings. You're a first-gen student, and you were actually the first to go out of state for undergrad. How difficult was that decision for you, and how did you actually have your family, like, how was that conversation with your family, period?
So right from the beginning, I was very vocal and transparent about like how I was navigating the college process. I knew that right off the bat, California schools were just off the table. I didn't want to stay in the state of California. I don't know why. It was just not attractive to me in any like way. So like I applied to the UCs for my parents just to like give them some like reassurance. Totally ignored the CSUs. And then I knew that I wanted to go out of state right off the bat for college. I just wanted to like explore the world, and that was like my whole mindset. I want to like get out of the California bubble. So in like easing my family, I was just very vocal to them saying like, I want to go out of state. I'm not going to stay in California. If I'm going to college, you're not keeping me here. And then with that, obviously they gave their concerns. So whatever schools I was like interested in, I would just like reassure them of the environment. So I was just like, you don't have to worry about me not having food. There's like Whole Foods, Trader Joe's 5 minutes away. There's this bank is right here. You can always send me money here. I have a bank account with them. I just like made sure that they knew that the environment was safe. And then that slowly started letting them think that I was fine to go out of state.
So you definitely were doing your research of like what's around the areas to make my parents more comfortable with my decision.
Yeah.
Do you think that ultimately really helped them?
That totally did. With my research, I was also just like telling them like, oh, hey, like I don't have this bank account, but this is the main. I did like the research to like what's the popular bank account used in Boston, and I was like, I don't have that account, so I have to go open one. And then my parents, seeing that like effort that I was taking, they instantly were like, okay, we know that you're independent, you're totally gonna be fine. And yeah, that was like totally how I managed that.
And you know, I know that this is not you know, the most typical thing for all students, but I know that you actually did not have the chance to visit Boston College. I can't remember why. I think you had like a conflict, maybe it was prom or something like that. But what were some tools that you actually used to feel comfortable in making your final decision to go to Boston College without even visiting it, given that so many students right now actually cannot visit their campuses due to school closures? So what were some tools that you used?
So I had a conflict with not being able to fly out to visit Boston because it was for prom, and then the flights weren't aligning. So my like plan B was that I spent hours just like looking at all the possible like tour videos, dorm room videos of Boston College. And then after seeing like tons of those videos, I just like quickly knew that I knew how the school looked like. I knew virtually where things were at. I could see the student like body and like its attitude and behavior through the YouTube videos. So I knew that I was gonna fit in. And then so I just like basically with everything that's going on right now, YouTube videos are like the best way to see your school. And obviously, if you don't like what you see in the YouTube videos, that's like a sign that maybe that school isn't for you. But in my case, everything that I was seeing of BC just made me feel better. So that's how I ultimately ended up choosing BC.
Okay, thank you guys. And then, you know, this is a question for both of you guys. Maybe Jailene, you can start. But what piece of advice could you give to, you know, whether it's a current high school student or even an educator that's on this virtual session, or even others that will see the recording afterwards, as they reflect on how they can better include their families into a college conversation or even look at college planning?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned this earlier. I think it's just having that open, transparent conversation
Mhm.
from the beginning. I know it can be hard to hear different opinions and things like that, but I think it's just important to have that dialogue because that facilitates communication towards the end. So it's definitely important to start early on, just at least letting them know, you know, for students, like letting your parents know, like, oh, like I might be applying to this school because I like their link program. And then for educators or families or parents, they can also be like, oh, like tell the student like, oh, I think this university might be a great fit for you because X, Y, and Z. And it's important to have those conversations. But I think what everyone needs to understand, it's very important for the student to have the choice in the end to pick their college of their choice, because they know what they're looking for, what they're trying to get out of it. You know, it's academia is so important, but there's other aspects that are just as important, such as like the living situation, the job opportunities while they're there, and also the ones after. Like there's just a lot to go about and talk about, and students know more of like what they really want to get out of that. So it's just being open, transparent, just having that communication, and just letting students have the ultimate choice of where they want to go.
Okay. Jesse, any tips or anything you'd like to share?
Along with what my sister said, obviously me and my sister were very privileged to have our family very involved in our college process. But I would also say that like when we say that you should include your family into your college process, your family doesn't mean that it's just blood like relation. I was very blessed to have my high school counselor very involved in my college process. She always like would pull me aside during a few periods during the whole like applying period, and she'd be like, okay, where have you applied? Have you applied to scholarships? How's your FAFSA? Are you on track? What does your mom and dad think? And then she also ended up being like the pivotal role model and like person that made me decide on BC. She was the one that told me about Boston College, and then overall she reassured me that my decision to commit to BC was also the best decision. So like if you don't have parents or like direct family that you can rely on, you'll be surprised at who else can help you.
Thank you both. We really appreciate it. And Jesse, can we give your counselor a shout out? You know, I think that'd be nice. A lot of our educators don't always get recognized, so I don't know if you wanted to say their name.
She's Lacey Monger. So
Okay.
yeah, Catella High School.
So Ms. Monger, we're giving you some snaps. Thank you for all the work you do. You may or may not be on this call, but we just wanted to give a shout out. But thank you both. Jesse, Jailene, hopefully I get to see your mom and dad soon.
Yes.
We wanted to just open it up for anyone at this moment. If you had any questions of Betsy or myself, or even Jesse and Jailene, they did such a amazing job talking a little bit more about how they included their family on the call. So we'll give you guys like a quick minute if you'd like to type any questions out. Would definitely appreciate any thoughts that you may have. Oh, is that?
Yay!
Yay. Okay. All right. I think we had someone join the party. Jesse, you want to introduce?
Yeah, so this is my mom, well, me and my sister's mom.
Hi.
Hola, señora Aguirre, ¿cómo está?
Bien, gracias. ¿Y ustedes cómo están? ¿Cómo nos
Muy
están pasando
bien.
estos días?
Ahorita está un poco famosa porque estamos haciendo una sesión para educadores por todo el país. So dígale hola.
Hola a todos, mucho gusto.
Pues ya que está con nosotros, a ver si le podemos preguntar una pregunta y yo creo que ya vamos a terminar la sesión, pero ¿qué le puede decir a las familias por todo el país que cómo deberían de incluir no nomás ustedes, pero sus hijos en una conversación hablando de la universidad y del colegio? ¿Qué le ayudó a usted en el proceso de Jesse y de Jailene?
Bueno, lo importante es la comunicación entre padre e hijo. Estar siempre comunicándonos, conocer cuáles son las metas que ellos tienen, qué es lo que quieren en proyectarse, no solo hacer lo que uno quiere, porque si uno les exige lo que uno tiene en mente para ellos, no va a funcionar. Pues para mí es que ellos sigan sus gustos, sus metas, ¿cómo les digo? Lo que ellos prefieren estudiar, elegir. Bueno, esa es mi pensar.
Jesse, do you want to translate? Do you want me to translate?
If you want to.
You know, I think for sure, I think the key thing that she really just wanted to put out there for everybody, and Betsy, feel free to join if I missed anything, is really having that important conversation between parent and child and trying to be as supportive as possible in their decisions. Betsy, I don't know if you want to take a stab at it too.
Yeah, and she also really emphasized the whole concept of communication, of having open communication with your children, with your student, and that way things can flow easier and they feel comfortable with approaching, you know, like their parent with their ideas, right? And coming to like that level of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, definitely appreciate her and her input. I know that Jesse will definitely share any other thoughts that she may have too with us.
Señora Aguirre, nomás le quería decir que alguien hizo un comentario que dijo, sí, que comunicación es muy importante y que usted es una mamá maravillosa
Gracias.
por apoyar a sus hijos. So, oh my God, I'm getting all emotional.
I know.
Pero últimas palabras. ¿Qué le puede decir a la clase 2020, especialmente esos estudiantes que desafortunadamente, pues yo sé que las graduaciones han sido canceladas, hay papás que a lo mejor no saben cómo ayudar a sus hijos ahorita, pero ¿tiene palabras de aliento para todas las familias que tienen estos momentos difíciles?
Bueno, lo importante es tener siempre fe, tener la confianza con uno mismo y seguir siempre las reglas que está dando el gobierno para protegerse. Ahora, con respecto a lo que es el estudio, bueno, yo soy muy creyente. Yo sé que Dios sabe por qué hace las cosas y es mejor que estén en casa, que va a haber otro mañana donde van ellos a disfrutar ese día, que lo van a poder festejar con familia, o me imagino también las escuelas pueden hacer algo para motivar a los estudiantes que están pasando esta etapa, y que se preparen, que sigan preparándose, que no decaigan en sus sueños, en sus metas, en sus ilusiones, que todo se puede y siempre, como les digo yo a mis hijos, mente positiva, que todo, pues si tú tienes tu mente negativa, tú mismo vas a negar tus pasos, tú no vas a escalar esa montaña. Entonces les digo, siempre mente positiva y en cualquier momento.
Pues muchas gracias. So thank you, Betsy, for adding that in the chat. You know, I just asked Ms. Aguirre, like, you know, what are some words of like wisdom or just encouragement that you can share with the entire class of 2020, especially during this time, you know, where things are difficult. We understand graduations are getting postponed or canceled. And we understand that these are milestones that so many people were looking forward to. And she said, you know, primarily as you know, families, students, everyone, just everyone in general needs to have faith. And the same way I've taught my children to be, you know, have a positive mindset, you know, I ask that everyone have a positive mindset during these difficult times, that everything will have, you know, light at the end of the tunnel, and that we will be in a better place later on. So thank you. Muchas gracias, Señora Aguirre. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Jailene. We really appreciate you guys. We wanted to just thank everyone that was on this call today. If for whatever reason your colleague couldn't make it, or maybe a friend of yours couldn't make it on this webinar, we will be sharing this recording, and we will actually be sharing all of the resources and more in an email. So, oh my God. Oh, well,
I know.
someone just said, I'm crying. This was very touching, bringing back memories of my own first-gen journey. We're certainly a community of care for one another, especially during this time. Oh, thank you guys. We really appreciate the words. And just as an FYI, we are actually going to be having another webinar, and this one is actually going to be college students. So we particularly work with a lot of high school and college age scholars. And we wanted to give our college scholars a platform to kind of talk about, you know, what they're kind of dealing with right now, and, you know, what their hope is for the future, and how other people can support their efforts in their college journey. And we really hope you guys can join us. Betsy, correct me if I'm wrong. I think that webinar is going to be Thursday, April 16th at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if you can, please join that one too. Stay on the lookout. We will have another Eventbrite. And again, thank you guys all so much for joining. We really appreciate you, and stay safe, stay healthy, and muchas gracias a Ms. Aguirre, and thank you guys so much for joining.
Que gracias y bendiciones para todos.
Muchas gracias.
Okay, bye.